Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video, and welcome to episode 241 of our Bossk's Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comments section and do my best to answer them. So if you do have a question for next week's episode and you want to be featured in the video, be sure to leave that question in the comments section of this video, and as I said, hopefully you'll be picked next week. If you do happen to enjoy the video, hit the like button down below, subscribe if you're new, and before we get on to this week's questions, got a couple of things to go over. Namely, we did end up reaching 30,000 subscribers on the channel, so thank you so much. And because of that, we've got an extended episode this week because we've got loads of questions to get through. Loads of you left a question on last week's episode and were entered in the giveaway as well. We do have the result of the giveaway later on in the video, so be sure to hang around for that as well. But with all that being said, I just want to say a huge thank you to my latest Patreon supporter, who goes by the name of Mario Alvidrez. So thank you so much for the support. Really do appreciate it, buddy. And I hope you enjoy being a member of the channel. So this week's episode is sponsored by VC500 because it's episode 241, and that is the Stormtrooper, the Imperial Stormtrooper on the Empire Strikes Back card, as you can see there. Now this one, when it's a release, you could also get it on a Return of the Jedi card and also on a Revenge of the Jedi card. At the time, you could not get this figure on a Star Wars card, which was essentially the card back that he should have been released on. Of course, as we know, they have rectified that recently with the definitive Stormtrooper. And a big shout out as well to VC241, which is the Dark Times Vader just there. I've had to include him because in my opinion, that's one of the best figures we've had since TVC 2.0 came back. Definitive Vader from the Obi-Wan show. Amazing figure. Now, as I mentioned, we do have a load of questions to get through this week, so some of them will be answered in a quick fire fashion. But of course, if a question does need a longer answer, then I'm happy to do that as well. So yes, and the first question is from Darth Hideous, and he says, Tim, congrats on the imminent 30k. Giveaway answer is the E-Wing with KE4N4. Question for next week. What happened to Tungori? It seems like his website has been down for a bit now. Also, he is basically impossible to contact. Yeah, so unfortunately, it does look like that Tungori.com, for the moment anyway, is no more. When you try to go to his website, it's searchable on Google, but when you click on it, it's not there, it's down. And that could be because he's not renewed his hosting or his domain name or whatever, or maybe he's just completely run out of stock and he's, ceased to trade. Who knows? We hope that he does come back, because sometimes it is a good source of rarer 3.75 inch loose figures, although some of them never turned up with the right accessories or no accessories or 2 left feet, things like that. It seemed to me that they were kind of like maybe, seconds or rejects, ones that didn't make the grade to be actually sold. Maybe he's just run out of stock and that's it. But for the moment, unfortunately, it's down and nobody knows really what's going on. This is the Weekway, says, hey BB, congratulations on 30,000 subscribers, and thanks to you, John and Chris, for your hard work on Last Figure Standing. I really enjoyed taking part. Question for next week. Now that Dr. Evazan has been revealed, which other Cantina figures do you think Hasbro will re-release? I would love them to repack Mossep Binid from the Black Series 3.75. He is impossible to find on the secondary market. Giveaway answer is the E-Wing, yeah. So I would hope, and I don't know if this is a thing, but I would hope that they would add to the Dr. Evazan by giving us a reissue of the Walrus Man, but with a new head and possibly new hips as well. They kind of need to update that figure, so it wouldn't necessarily be a straight re-release. But if they're going to be doing Dr. Evazan, then you kind of need his partner in crime. And you're absolutely right regarding Mossep Binid. I think that's one that they could just straight repack into TVC. That is a tough one to find on the secondary market, although if you're in the UK, Star Action Figures have found a couple of those in their warehouse and they've been putting them on eBay every week for the past few weeks now. So I think there's one that's finishing tonight actually, but of course that's in the UK. Kevin John says, with the Ghost shipping soon along with the Phantom 2, do you think we will eventually get a new Phantom 1 that is in scale with the Ghost? I can't predict whether that will happen, but I think it would be a good idea for them to do that. One that does actually slot into the back of the Ghost, just like the Phantom 2 does. Therefore, you can reenact scenes from, Rebels itself. And it would be a really good way of getting Season 1 Ezra into the line or a Season 1 Hera into the line, because essentially we've only got her from the Ahsoka series, the live action version, and the one that's coming with the Ghost itself, which is based on Series 3 and 4, I think. So that would be a good way for people that aren't buying the Ghost to just have a small vehicle and a Season 1 Hera or Ezra. I think it's a good idea. Whether it'll happen is another matter. Elizabeth Dudley says, answer to checklist question is E-Wing with KE4N4. Question for next week. 2 of my favourite old figures are Ifant Mon and Amanaman because they are both so different to other characters in design. Would you like to see new versions of these in TVC? And do you think there's any possibility of getting them, bearing in mind they will probably have to be 100% newly tooled? So first off, I don't think there's any chance that we're ever going to get Ifant Mon newly tooled. I've put him there. What a fantastically detailed figure that is. So awesome. I doubt they'll even reissue that figure. I mean, I think the sculpt and the tooling for that will be far too old, and they just won't ever revisit that, in my opinion. But what a great figure to have if you have got it from that line. He doesn't really need to do much else apart from stand there, so he looks great. Amanaman is a different story. That is one I think they could consider doing in the future. Essentially, it's one of the original 96. They kind of need to get to him at some point. It's just one of those that I think that they'll find difficult to do in terms of like what price point they can set it at. Would it be a deluxe? What card back would they put it on? All that kind of nonsense that we shouldn't really be concerning ourselves with. We just want the figure. But yeah, I can't see it happening anytime soon, I've got to be honest. Roll Tide says, hey BB, question for next week. What's your favourite fast food restaurant? Oh man, that is difficult. There's quite a few that I like over here, but in terms of when I was in the US, I did enjoy a Slim Chickens. I thought that was quite nice. I really did like their chocolate milkshake. Wow, what a chocolate milkshake that was. The best chocolate milkshake I've probably ever had from a fast food place is from Slim Chickens. Their chicken wasn't bad either, but over here I quite like Nando's chicken. Not too sure if that constitutes as fast food necessarily. But, you know, I'm like anyone else, man. I like decent burgers. Five Guys burgers. They're a decent burger. The Dark Soul says, congrats on 30k subs. I'm going with the E-Wing with KE4N4 is missing. Question for next week. Do you think Hasbro will ever release any more figures from the comic lines like Cade Skywalker or Darth Krayt? I'd love to see some of them come back. I've got to be honest, I think that's unlikely at this point of time just because of the sheer amount of other things that they need to do and the media sources that they have. They can't keep up as it is. And I think comic figures and things like that is what suffers the most. You know, they get out figures from the odd video game here and there and animation shows, but comic figures, unless it's a figure that needs minimum retooling or just a repaint, an added scarf or something like that, then that's a maybe. But, you know, in terms of newly tooled figures, it's a no-go in my opinion. Everything Clone Wars says, Cobvanth is missing a picture. Question for next week. I noticed that Disney Store is getting the Armorer's Forge and the E-Wing before the pre-order directly from Hasbro. What's the deal with that? And also I got the Andor K2SO figure before as well from GameStop. So essentially the answer to that is that Hasbro Pulse isn't really the same thing as Hasbro. They are essentially their own kind of retailer. They have their own stock levels, all that kind of thing, just like any other retailer. And in fact, they may even be a bit more strict on like ship dates and things like that. You know, GameStop, Amazon, any other retailer that happens to get stock in might want to just put it out on their shelves. Whereas Hasbro might wait for the whole stock to come in and then ship out everybody that's pre-ordered it, basically. I'm pretty sure that's basically what it is. But in short, Hasbro Pulse doesn't really have too much to do with Hasbro itself. Die Shooter Higher, I think that says. Hi Tim, question for next week. With the Return to Tatooine theme coming in 2025, I assume we will get many figures from Tatooine coming next year. The question is, will it be limited to a New Hope lineup since all the revealed and pipeline figures are mostly from a New Hope? Do you think they'll extend the lineup to Tatooine themed like the Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace and the Book of Boba Fett? Pod Racers and an extend of Jabba's throne playset would be lovely. Thanks and may the force be with you. So yes, originally when they announced the Return to Tatooine theme, I did think perhaps it would extend past A New Hope, but the more and more I think about it and look at it, I think most of it, 99% of it, is going to be A New Hope. Obviously you've got the Cantina, it's kind of all centered around that, isn't it? You've got the main heroes that were pipelined, we've got the streets of Tatooine, which I guess you could use for anything, but it's A New Hope really, isn't it? It's got a Jarrah in it and things like that. But I guess you could look at Aura Singh and say, well, she's from Tatooine, so that is sort of loosely connected, I guess. But I think in the main, it's going to be all from A New Hope. I can't really see too much else coming from that. You've got to remember that it is just a sub-theme of the year. It's not the most dominating theme. You've got the whole main line of figures coming out, and then they're going to be sprinkling little bits of Return to Tatooine within those, and maybe a vehicle or something as well. So that's my thoughts on it. Steve DeBursa says, thanks BB, loved Last Figure Standing. I think it was even better than last year, if that was possible. The dashboards are particularly insightful and a mine of information. Questions for next week: do you think we will see more figure reveals before the year end, and how do you think and how frequently figures reveals will happen in 2025 in light of Mr. Stevie's update that the pipeline reveals will be less of a thing in the future? Thanks as always, Steve. Well, in terms of things being revealed this year, yep, we're definitely going to get more things revealed this year. We've got Gift the Galaxy starting soon, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get at least one reveal within the next 10 days, I predict. And as for next year and how they're going to reveal things without pipelines and things like that, I think we're just going to get more figures per reveals, if that makes sense, because essentially the amount of figures that we're getting isn't really changing. It's just the fact that they're not like pipelining any of those like 6 months out anymore. So you might get a reveal of something that's due in 3-4 months time. You might get a reveal of something that's 6, 7, 8 months time, but ultimately we're getting the same amount of figures in the year, so we're going to get the same amount of reveals, if that kind of makes sense. However, I do agree with my buddy Chris from Bantha Skull that pipelines still have a place. A great example is the E-Wing. When the E-Wing was announced, you know, everyone really wanted the pilot for it, so they basically pipelined the pilot, even though that pilot probably won't actually be in our hands for maybe 6 to 8 months after we get the E-Wing, for example. So that's where a pipeline is a good thing. E-Wing Squadron says, hi Bossk, it looks to me like the E-Wing is missing a thumbnail from your TVC checklist. Question for next week: why aren't electronic lights and sounds a common feature on TVC vehicles or HasLabs? 2 reasons, buddy. I reckon is that the price is one thing, the cost of things to put lights and sounds in will up the price, and also the fact that TVC has now really become a collector, adult collector line, if you like. They're not aimed at kids anymore, and all of those vehicles that we used to get in the Legacy Collection that used to have lights and sounds, although the adults did buy them as well, essentially kids used to play with them, and they're play features basically. So that's kind of why. ONP Steve says, hey BB, congrats on both the conclusion of Last Figure Standing and on reaching 30,000 when you hit it. That is hopefully by the time you read this. The giveaway answer is the Escape from Order 66 special action figure set. Speaking of my question for next week, you are often asked what would you like the next troop builder to be. However, I would like to know what would be your no strings attached dream special action figure set. 3 or 4 named characters, as well as one that you think might actually be likely in the future. Keep up the great work as always. Oh man, there's a few that could be just so awesome in terms of 3-packs. I mean, I've just put these 2 guys here. I mean, you could have a Rogue One 3-pack of Saw and the 2 Tubes brothers. That would be an amazing 3-pack in my opinion. You could have Bistan, Pow and Melshi, for example, from Rogue One as well. In terms of one that I think that they could possibly do, which I think would be a really good thing, would be maybe a AT-AT driver, the General Veers, and a Snowtrooper Commander. That would be a really awesome sort of Hoth-themed 3-pack, and there's some retooling in there if they want to keep the costs down on that. Obviously, the AT-AT driver would need to be all new. They could retool to make Veers with his armour, and they could retool the Snowtrooper hopefully into a Snowtrooper Commander. I think that would be awesome. So there's some good ideas for you. That's one that I think that they could possibly do. The other ones are probably more of a dream. Clemmer205 says, hi BB, first of all, congratulations for the success of your channel. You really deserve it. Question for next week: Hasbro has recently announced 2 reissues, Dr. Evazan and Aura Singh, using different card backs as the original card back used in TVC 1.0. Previously, the reissues in TVC 2.0 have always used the same card backs as the one used in TVC 1.0. What do you think about it? Is it better to change the card back for a reissue or not? Thanks for your answer. I personally think that it's a better idea to change the card back image. It keeps everyone happy, in my opinion. It keeps the people that already own it happy, because the original maintains the value if that's what you're into, but also everybody gets a chance to get the figure again if you want the figure, so all the people that didn't have the figure can now get the figure. And then for people that are really into the hobby, you get a nice variant card back as well, so win-win all round. Brendan Draper says, hi, you're missing the Escape of Order 66 Ahsoka's pack. Question for next week: which film or series in Star Wars would you most want to see more figures from? I want figures from the Droids cartoon? That's an easy one for me, buddy. It would have to be either Rogue One or Andor. Those are the two things that I'd like to see more figures from. Cliff Oliviera says, great video, boss. Kudos answering your question. I believe you are missing the images for the E-Wing and the included figure. Question for next week. When you first started your channel, how long did you think it would take to reach 30,000 subscribers? I've got to be honest, buddy. When I first started my channel, I never thought I would reach 30,000 subscribers. I didn't even think about it, but I'm glad I have. So thanks for supporting the channel. Alright then, so now it is time for the giveaway result, and here is a video of me picking the winner via a YouTube random comment picker. So congratulations to Joan Anderson, who wins the giveaway, and they say, hi BB, answer is hopefully Escape from Order 66, Ahsoka and her droid mates, but there was no photo of the new E-Wing either. That is correct, loads of people got it correct. Question for next week. Do you think the reissue waves will come back? There are loads of 1.0 figures I need in my collection. Wish you all the best and thank you for the work you put in your channel. So in terms of the reissues, I don't believe that we're going to be getting like actual full waves of maybe 4 reissues like we have done in the past. I think they'll continue to sprinkle them into other waves like we're seeing with Aura Singh and Dr. Evazan. I think the sort of the whole wave thing is a thing of the past now, basically. I still feel that there are figures from TVC 1.0 that they could reissue, and I'm sure there's ones that people want out there, so I don't think it's going to stop completely, but just from a whole wave point of view, yeah, I doubt that's a thing anymore. So congratulations on winning. You have won the Sabine, Wren and Chopper 2-pack. Be sure to contact me, tim@bosksbounty.com, to claim, and you know, we can get your details and whatever, and we can send that out. Unfortunately, if you don't get back to me within 7 days, I will have to redraw. I think that's only fair, but I'm sure you will, because if you're a regular watcher, then you'll see that you've won. So there you go. Chief Chirper says, first of all, what an awesome episode, Tim. Well done. Now let's get to that 30k. After some perusal of your checklist, I'm sure the answer is the E-Wing with the astromech KE4N4 that is missing the images. Pretty sure some people are now currently receiving it too. With that being said, my question for next week is droid related and in 2 parts. Firstly, what is your favourite droid in TVC and why? Then secondly, what is your #1 droid that hasn't been made yet in TVC that you would like Hasbro to include in the line? My favourite is K2SO, and not made yet would definitely be the mouse catcher droid from the Book of Boba Fett. I thought he was awesome and worthy of his own show. Anyway, before this question gets too long, I'll see you on the next one. So in terms of my favourite, I will point you towards a video I did a while back now, my worst to first of droids in TVC. I don't really want to ruin that for anyone that's not seen it, so I'll leave it there. Make sure you go and watch that and you'll see which one I think is the worst, all the way to which is my favourite. In terms of droids that I feel should be in TVC, there's a couple really that should be 100% in the vintage collection, and that is Andor's droid, B2 EMO. I know that we got him in the Droid Factory, but he should have been in TVC. And also at the time of the Obi-Wan show, we should have got Ned B as well. We got him in the Retro Collection, Black Series got him, but we never got him in TVC. Again, another one that was released in the Droid Factory is in the 4-pack, but still, that on a card back would have been great at the time. So yeah, there's 2 that really should have been in TVC. Kurt K says, congrats on 30,000, Tim. Been here since 2020 and it's been fun to watch you and your channel grow. Question for next week. Outside of Garandan, what are your top wants for the Return to Tatooine campaign? Oh man, there's loads, isn't there? I mean, I'll just pick a few here for you. Spaceman from the Cantina would be great. You know, this costume, but with the Spaceman's helmet. They could do Bossk at the same time as that. A Sand Trooper, we are in desperate need of a new Sand Trooper, and to throw in a creature, a Dewback as well, because that does go across different medias as well. I think that's a good lineup. Pesto Pizza says, hi BB, question for next week. Have you ever sold any Star Wars item and regretted it? So much so that you then rebought it? Absolutely. My whole Star Wars collection from when I was a kid, it all got sold apart from maybe my Millennium Falcon and a couple of figures, and I had to rebuy it all, as you can see in that cabinet there. So that's a big regret. But in terms of, like, you know, since I've been actually collecting, there's been some vintage items that I had maybe 20 years ago, which I sold for absolutely peanuts, that I would like back now because they're worth a lot of money. But I don't really regret too much, no. I seem to have kept really what I really wanted to keep, so I'm happy. Chris Thurm says, hey Bossk, thanks for your work in the community. Missing Escape from Order 66. My question is, it seems that the price point for the Black Series allows Hasbro to make a larger amount of figures. Would you be in favour of Hasbro upping the price of TVC figures if it meant we would get the same figures as the Black Series? This is a really difficult question, man, because nobody wants to say, yes, I'm happy to pay more money for the things that you're already giving me. But ultimately, it is a bit of a fact that TVC figures and Black Series figures cost pretty much the same to produce. They sell more Black Series and they sell for a higher price. So we're always going to be fighting a losing battle in that respect. What I would say is that I don't necessarily want more figures per year. I just want better quality and more newly tooled figures, you know, rather than sort of cutting corners on certain characters and things like that. I'd rather the accuracy and quality is there. And, you know, if I've got to pay maybe a couple of pounds more per figure, then so be it. But ultimately, it's not something that I want to sort of say to Hasbro, yep, go for it, up the price, because, you know, we're happy to pay for it. I just really don't sort of know what the answer is to this sort of conundrum that we are in. Like I just said, you know, the price to actually produce these things is the same, and the Black Series is always going to win because they can charge so much more for them and sell more. So it's not good, man. It's not good. Anonymous Hippopotamus says, howdy Bossk, congrats on the upcoming subscriber milestone. Question for next week. I loved your worst to first deluxe boxes video. As you said, the deluxe boxes are gone and Hasbro has switched to the larger card backs. One of the benefits of the boxes was that it allowed for large accessories to be packed in. Examples, the E-Web cannon and the Dark Trooper panels. Could Hasbro fit these accessories in a bubble? If not, then what is your opinion on the best format to release these larger accessories? My concern is that Hasbro will stray away from the accessories that truly made these figures deluxe. Unfortunately, buddy, I think that they have already kind of strayed away from that, and a deluxe figure now is, we want to charge you more for this figure, so we're going to put him in a fancy box or now a larger card back. You only have to look at the Sabine that comes with the Howler. There is nothing in that bubble that needs it to be a bigger bubble on a deluxe card. I personally feel that they've done that because the original figure of that character was a deluxe in a box, and essentially it didn't really come with too much else to make it deluxe. The Stormtrooper with the E-Web cannon, the Dark Trooper with his charging station, yes, those pieces I would struggle to see how they would fit into a bubble unless you made the bubble quite deep and had the accessories behind the figure somehow. So in answer to your question, I don't really know how they're going to get around that. For those sorts of deluxes, you know, they're sort of almost like accessory packs, and I think they should have kept those. The Stormtrooper and E-Web cannon should not be on a card back. That should be in one of those boxes. You know, so a lot of people sort of said, we don't like these deluxe boxes. But when we were talking about that, we were talking about for figures like Jango Fett and Boba Fett. You know, we don't need those figures in those boxes. They can be on a card. Chrysanthemum could have been on a card. So we are in that position now where we've kind of asked them to stop with the boxes, but now we might not be able to get this sort of thing anymore. You know, will they be able to pack this as well as a figure on a card back, you know, as a deluxe? I'm not too sure how they're going to get around that, buddy. Evan Weiss says, hi Tim, congrats on 30k subscribers. Here's to another 30k. Question for next week. While we all want TVC to go on forever, the reality is that it won't. Where did you see a realistic final number for the line? Think it can get to 500? Seems like the line has lost a lot of steam over recent years, and I don't know if we can get another 150 or so figures out of it. What are your thoughts? And the missing figure was KE4N4. Yeah, so I feel that TVC, of course, will not go on forever. Nothing really does. All lines come to an end eventually. But I think we've got a few years yet. I mean, as I said, they have wrapped up what they're going to be including in 2026. So that's at least 2 more years of TVC. That won't quite get us to another 150 figures, but another year on top of that, it certainly will, because we get about 50 or 60 a year. So, I don't know, man. I think 500 could potentially be a cutoff point. I hope it's not, because if they got rid of this card back that we talk about so often and put them in another line, I think they would lose a lot of the customer base, and therefore 3.75 inch super articulated figures might end up dying off completely. I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll have to wait and see. But in terms of running out of steam, I think this year has been a bit poor. I think everyone can kind of accept that. But apart from that, the previous 2 years before that were pretty good, I felt. So let's just have a slam dunk 2025, and then hopefully whatever they've got, arranged for 2026 will be awesome as well. So fingers crossed. All right, then that's it for this week's episode. I just want to say a huge thank you to every single one of my 30,000 subscribers. If all of you are still around, that's fantastic. So thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel, hitting the like button on my videos. It all does help. Thank you so much. Congratulations to the winner of the giveaway. Be sure to contact me, tim@bossbounty.com, and we'll arrange to get that out. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. As always, thank you so much for the extra support. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.